Why did the second most powerful Sith in Vitiate's empire try to ultimately destroy it? In the day of the Old Republic, the resurrected Sith Empire was its greatest threat, but to the Empire itself also, its own members were its greatest threat. By the time of the Cold War following the sacking of Coruscant, the whole system was run by the 7 remaining members of what made up the Dark Council. Within the Dark Council, the seats were constantly changing, as the Dark Lords were overthrown or undermined. However, there were a select few that never got removed from this council, and among them was the Sith Lord by the name of Darth Jadus, a man so powerful that he was said to be second only to Vitiate himself. This was not a self-proclaimed title either, as even Emperor Vitiate said that Jadus was his only second. The power alone was not going to get Jadus his infamy though, his incredible cunning mind would. So join us today as we open an ancient holocron and talk about how the second most powerful Sith nearly destroyed Vitiate's empire. Darth Jadus had a lot in common with the Sith Darth Mar, which is to say that he always wore a mask to obscure his identity. He was cold, calculating, and enigmatic, and he didn't operate like many other Sith did. Being the brilliant mind that he was, he never showed his cards and kept his emotions under lock and key. Very rarely did Darth Jadus ever give in to his rage or show signs of passion. By containing his emotions within, they simmered and brewed into a violent storm, one that gave him staggering amounts of power when the time came to unleash it. This technique is not a new one to lore, as it was perfected famously by Darth Sidious, and is a well-kept secret of the powerful Dark Lords that know of it. But he also shared similarities with Darth Malgus as well. Darth Jadus distanced himself from the petty squabbles of his fellow council members, and also like Malgus, detested the anti-alien sentiment that was prevalent in the Sith Empire at the time. He staunchly believed that the alien species of the galaxy had a lot to offer the Sith, and that human-centric thinking was not only holding them back, but actively harming their war efforts. Darth Jadus always had a belief of greater glory for himself and for the Sith, and to do this, he inspired hope in the common folk of the Empire. He believed in the innate usefulness of anyone regardless of their race or their Force sensitivity. This gave him a tendency to uplift ordinary citizens and non-Force users as well, rather than other Sith who would have squandered the talents of the fallen. All of these traits combined fostered a sense of unease and mistrust of him in other Sith comrades. However, it instilled an almost religious fanaticism in his followers. Despite being named as the second most powerful Sith in the entire Empire, rarely did Darth Jadus ever do his own fighting. Ironically, he actually hardly ever saw combat, as he was the overseer of the Imperial Intelligence Spy Network, having taken control of it sometime after the start of the Cold War. Not only this, but a precious few ever saw the man in person. He almost always acted through intermediaries, and to add to his mystery, he only ever took a single apprentice, his own flesh, his daughter. He had sired a child some time back and trained her to be strong and cunning, and would name her Darth Zorid. But in raw power, he had no equal, besides the Emperor, of course. While his recorded feats may be few, we have many examples of his esoteric powers. He had the ability to use Force Corrupt, which allowed him to dominate the minds of even strong-willed Force sensitives. It also seemed that he knew the secret of dark side healing, but one of his most impressive powers, believe it or not, was teleportation. Force teleportation is not an easy ability to master. It required the knowledge to literally fold space itself with the Force, which allowed instantaneous travel between one point to another. It was an ability held by precious few, including Vitiate, and later in the timeline, Darth Jadus, who learned it from the Aangti monks. Plagueis once alluded to teleportation being a secret ability of the ancient Sith, but it was out of his range of power. Even Luke Skywalker mentioned that if such an ability did exist, it was far beyond his capabilities at the time of recording it. It's no wonder that Vitiate admitted to Jadus being only his second, and even said that he was the best Sith that the Empire had ever produced. Proof that it worked. In fact, Jadus's power in the Force was so potent that the raw waves of darkside energy radiating off of him caused physical pain to those in his presence, likely adding to the reason why he rarely goes anywhere himself. Darth Jadus's play for power would finally come when a terrorist organization arose to oppose the Sith Empire. This organization, known as the Eagles Network, were planning massive attacks against the Sith, yet they were aligned with the Republic. They seemed to have their own ideology on how the Empire should be run, so Jadus sent an agent by the codename of Cipher 9 to investigate. Cipher 9 managed to stop the Eagles network from taking out Dromund Kaas's power grid, but they launched a simultaneous attack on the Sith capital as well, the Dominator. The bombarding of the ship took out a large number of high-ranking officials within the Sith Empire, presumably even including Darth Jadus himself. However, this was nothing more than a brilliant farce. The truth was, Jadus had faked his death, and was in fact the puppet master of the Eagles network. The leader of the terrorists, simply called the Eagle, was now doing the bidding of Darth Jadus by using experimental superweapons, weapons known as Eradicators, to launch devastating attacks on Imperial holdings. The Eradicators were a genius combination of biological and mechanical components. They were like seeds which could be planted in a planet and activated through codes to grow into a weapon which could potentially annihilate a city. In his absence, the Dark Council elected his daughter, Darth Zorid, to take his seat. Meanwhile, they began fighting each other over claims to Jadus's resources, of which he had many. No one was able to challenge him before, so now that he was gone, everything he had was open, and the weaklings had formed like buzzards to pick the bones. The infighting, however, weakened them further and left them vulnerable, all a part of Jadus's plan. From the shadows, the Sith Lord continued to use the Eradicators against the Empire until all faith was lost in the Council. Jadus believed the Dark Council was holding the Empire back from its true great strength, so he would bring it back to its former glory, taking it back to its isolationist ways, as Vitiate had once constructed. Meanwhile, there was one mistake. Cipher 9 was still on the trail of Darth Jadus, and was attempting to take down the Eagle's network. Eventually, Cipher 9 was successful, killing the Eagle, and then discovering the truth. Darth Jadus had framed everything. In the course of defeating the terrorists, the agent had also gained over half of the command codes to the Eradicators. The cunning Darth Jadus would attempt to recruit Cipher 9 to give him the codes, enticing him to join Jadus's new Sith Empire. Stepping outside of the story for just a moment here, it should go without saying that Cipher 9 is in fact the player character of this quest, in of course the Old Republic video game. This leads to a complicated decision of which the player will have three outcomes. The first is that Cipher 9 gives Darth Jadus the codes, and becomes what is known as the Hand of Jadus. If he does this, the Dark Lord orders 9 to actually kill his daughter Darth Zorid, so that he can take his seat back on the Jedi Council. The second option given to the player is giving the codes to Jadus only to distract him once Cipher 9 sabotages his ship and then contacts the Sith Navy to arrest him. And finally, there is the third option, using the codes to deactivate the Eradicators. In this case, Darth Jadus mysteriously vanishes once they become useless. In any of these three cases, the Dark Lord soon learns of Vitiate's plan to wipe all life from the universe, so Darth Jadus leaves the known galaxy to better enact his plans of reshaping the Empire in secret. And to this very day, in Star Wars Legends lore, the fate of Darth Jadus is unknown. He could theoretically still be out there. And so, as far as we are currently aware, the story of Darth Jadus has come to a close here. None of the three options have been established as canon in this timeline whatsoever, so it's really up to your interpretation of the lore. Personally, I like the idea that Cipher 9 respects Darth Jadus' manipulation so much that he ultimately joins him and becomes the Hand of Jadus. Of course, this wouldn't matter, and would ultimately be undermined once Vitiate becomes Valkorian, because once that happens, he's basically unstoppable to the Sith Empire alone. As far as Darth Jadus goes himself, I really wish we had more lore on him as far as his feats and perhaps his personal victories are concerned. If a man is given the title of second only to Vitiate, we want to see something that would back that claim up. But what I do like is just how cunning he was. Even though Sith Lords who are unstoppable in the realm of the Force, such as Bane and Sidious, always advocate for guile being their greatest weapon. Bane certainly still believed in this despite being physically dominant. Darth Jadus' schemes are genius, and it's no wonder that he's kept himself at the top of the Dark Council for so long, not to mention just how ruthless he is, even ordering the death of his own daughter to see his dreams of his empire come to light. But anyway, my friends, we want to hear all your thoughts down below on Darth Jadus, and do you wish we got more on this cold and calculating Sith? Let us know your thoughts down below, and as always, may the Force be with you.